This is the place they say people come from far, far, far away to find their dreams, chasing down these meteors and comets called dreams in the sky of life.
The first topic I had ready to go for us, and when we talked about it, you wasn't aware of it, which I'm not surprised because they have not been marketing this movie very well at all. But Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the trailers? I have the trailer like queued up and ready to go if you want to watch it.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for it. I want to say a month ago. Yeah, I saw the trailer because I forget what I was doing. I think I was on the internet and I was just doing some reading, and then I seen a little pop up. It was like Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I was like, wait, what? I was like, how did they have a whole movie and I didn't know about it? And then I clicked on it and it led me to the trailer. And I was like, oh, okay. But it didn't have a lot of details into when it was coming out and where they were going to drop it.
That's what I say. They've been like poorly marketing it. This is sort of like the Jeepers Creepers 3 situation,
right?
Where like one night or one day, but it's gonna be available for 3 nights, September 19th to the 21st. You can watch the movie. The ticket's already on sale on Fandango. Already got my ticket. I'm watching it on the 19th, day one. Go ahead and knock it out the way. Get my review out to you guys. I gotta work that night. I might call off. I don't know. I might call off because I'm not trying to.
Now, is this in all theaters or is it just select theaters?
Select, but mainly AMC's. I think Regal, and what's the other one? What's the third one? AMC.
About AMC, yeah.
Century. So still, it's gonna be the major ones, but it's only available for 3 nights: September 19th, 20th, and the 21st.
Okay.
Spider-Man gameplay for y'all later.
I'm not sure if I'm going to see it in the theater, but I do plan on watching it just to see what happens because based off of that trailer, I was like, this doesn't look like Jeepers Creepers. It just seems like a bunch of humans partying and then the creeper shows up randomly. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, when I first saw the trailer, like there was all the parts of the creeper in it didn't seem corny, but like the whole the horror festival they're going to, a lot of that stuff is kind of corny to me. But the creeper himself in the trailer, it was cool. He was aight. Not really feeling the new take on his design because they drastically like changed his face and stuff. This is a continuation after 2, so it is picking up where 2 left off. So it's still connected, but it's like a soft rebooted type of it's literally a soft reboot. It's kind of like how it's kind of like Transformers 4 to 3. It's like a weird soft rebooted thing in a way, but it's still connected to those movies while still not being that connected. You know what I'm saying? So, that's how I'm looking at what this film is going to do and be. I just hope it's better than 3, especially the special effects. I really hope it's better than 3, and the special effects need to be good because to me, 3 was a waste of time for a story, and also the special effects did not help the movie because I found myself laughing at the movie more than I was enjoying it and, being scared of the creeper that we're supposed to be watching these movies.
For me, when I was watching Jeepers Creepers 3, I found the film to be entertaining only because it just didn't make any sense, and the creeper just seemed to be having all these different upgrades. I'm like, man, it seemed like he could just do anything now, and it just it all felt random. Right, the Creeper Mobile was it seemed like he went to Gotham for a few days and he saw Batman's Batmobile and he just made his own. That's what it seemed like.
Nah, he asked Lucius Fox to hook him up personally. Like, yo, Lucius, I'm doing some stuff in Florida. Could you hook me up? I got you.
Yeah, it probably killed him too in the process. Because if it's that one from Batwoman, like nah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, like to me, I wasn't against like the myth, like the magical stuff, But this is my problem with the whole truck situation, right? I just didn't like how. Okay, I'm totally fine having some supernatural element to it, like in the second movie. Remember the scene when the dad was holding his knife and it literally jumped out of his hand?
Yeah.
It jumped out of his hand as if it was trying to go back to where it originally was at.
Right, trying to go back to the creeper, yeah.
And you see in the third movie, when he killed that black dude, he had his axe and he pulled it. You literally pulled the dude up and he grabbed his axe, right? I'm totally fine with that type of stuff. But when you look at a truck's like bulletproof, got bulletproof glass, freaking mines coming out of it. It got a freaking rope, a little line launcher that literally can, hook itself to things. It's like, all right, now you just made a Batmobile now. Like, all right, this is too much.
Right.
Even a part in the beginning. Remember when he was on the truck and it was driving itself? Totally fine with that.
It just needs to stay within what is reasonable for the creeper, even though there's a lot of bizarre elements in relation to him, but it should not be to the degree where it becomes ridiculous and it doesn't match the character. Because there's only so much that the character is going to do and reveal. And if you just kind of keep adding to it as it goes, it takes away from the character. It then turns into just, it's funny now instead of it being scary.
Yeah. And that was, to me, for the third movie, that's what also bothered me, right? Like, the motherfucker wasn't scary and shit. The only part I thought was like kind of creepy to an extent was the beginning, where he kills the dude, gets his truck back, takes the tow truck, he takes his truck off the tow truck. Had that sequence, it slows down, he's on top of the truck, and he comes back and takes the guy. And that's when the creeper started being like creepy to me. The rest of the movie, it was like, man, this dude's kind of funny. Like, he was too much of a character, right? It's the thing about giving someone a personality, but when your personality starts to make me want to laugh at you, and you're supposed to be a horror villain, and I'm supposed to be scared of you, I mean, that's not what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
Like, he had a personality in the first two movies.
Right.
But that shit was creepy. He was over there licking. Remember the second movie? He's licking the bus, and he saw the black dude, and he's like, his eyes started rolling back to the back of his head. I'm like, dude, calm down.
It's like he was like, yep, that's some dark meat right there. But the thing,
he saw the white meat. He was like, nah, I don't do that white meat. I want the dark meat.
He was like, yep, that dark meat is more nourishing. Even and the black dude was like, nah, this some bullshit. I'm not ready for this. But like, see, like, to me,
he gotta go. But the black dude was a real one in that second movie, though. That was a good actor. That's a good actor.
The thing is like, there's a difference between somebody having character and being a character, right? So, you having a personality is good, like in the sense of the creeper, but when you start making things around him silly and the things that he's doing is unrealistic for his character, and it's just starting to border into the cartoonish area, then you're taking away from what established your franchise, which is the creeper being creepy. A lot of humans find him to be scary. If they go from feeling that way to laughing, then you just ruin the whole atmosphere for your movie.
Right. And like I say, when you said earlier, there got to be a level of reason we got to work with, right? Like in the first movie, we know he can do shit like easily. Probably we see in the second movie, he literally ripped at the roof off of a truck, right?
Right.
But within context of the second movie, the reason he was doing this more like out there stuff is because he only had like 2 days left.
Yeah.
So he was like rushing. He was like, I gotta get these bodies quick. In the first movie,
he was desperate. Yeah.
He's desperate. First movie, he's playing around, right? He got time to play around. He knows he's still limited to his 23 days, but he's playing around. Especially when he was dealing with Trish and Derry, especially in the car sequence. when he's on the
Right.
street and you see him pacing back and up and down like he's Undertaker and stuff to the side. That shit was generally scary. That had me shook when I was a kid. Still has me shook till this day.
And that's the difference, right?
Like that, I was like, God damn, this motherfucker smooth.
And that's the difference between the first movie and the second movie. The first movie, whether he had like 5 days left or whatever it was, the point is that he had a lot of time. Like he was not in a rush. As opposed to the second movie, we knew that his time was limited. So we got to see him in a more desperate, frantic sense of like, I just need to get out there and snatch some motherfuckers up because this clock is running out on my ass.
Yep.
So with that brings a certain sense of it being more terrifying, because I'm like, when something like the Creeper is calm, obviously that's a problem because it's calm for a reason. It knows that it can wreck you. It knows that you can't do jack shit about it. But on the other side of that coin, when you have something that looks like that and you can see that it's mad, you can see that it's like trying to do everything quickly as if it's trying to meet a deadline, that makes it worse because now it's like it's willing to do anything. Everything is on the table. There's no like, well, he wouldn't do this. He might. He seems pretty angry and desperate. He might do that.
Tony, real quick, that scene, real quick, and I'm going back to your point in a second, Terrence. That daytime shot that Tony just brought up when he's dumping the bodies, amazing. It's literally, and that's what's the other problem with Jeepers Creepers 3, right? A lot of daytime shots, but the first movie used a daytime shot of the Creeper in a more tasteful way. It didn't do too much, and it had it panned out to where it was far away, so you can't really see if this is a man or a demon. Like, you don't know yet if this is a man or a demon. You don't know, but you've seen enough to freak you out. You see a person dumping bodies down a pipe, and there's blood there's wrapped in sheets, blood on it, and the person just staring you down like, why are you in my business? Yeah, it was enough. It was enough to do it. And Jeepers Creepers 3 had too much daytime shots. It was just like, you would have benefited from filming in the nighttime and keeping it based around that for the Creeper.
I think for that particular scene where you see that someone is dumping the body, sometimes less acts as more when it's done in a certain way. Like the use of the camera to reveal that there is someone throwing the bodies in there. He's wearing a long coat and a hat. You can't really tell who it is. And then the way that he quickly turns in the direction of Derry and Trish, it's like he's moving in a way that's not very human. Because usually humans, when they hear or see something, they don't have like a jerking reaction and to where they look in that entire direction, like almost acting as if that's its own type of attack. You know what I mean? Like it kind of zeroes in on you, like somebody with a scope or something attached to a gun. So usually supernatural creatures do that, or individuals with training. So it immediately alerted us, the audience, like, okay, obviously this is not a good person. He's killed a bunch of individuals. He's dumping the bodies. He's probably been doing this a long time. Who knows how many are down there? You start thinking about a lot of different things. And now that he knows that they saw him, now they're in danger. And it's just like, it opens up a whole thing of like questions, and you feel for the characters at large. And you're like, yeah, this is a problem. Everybody's in danger. But at this moment in time, our main characters are in danger because they saw him do something, unlike others where they're just kind of unaware of what's going on to a large degree, or at least they haven't seen it in the way that Trish and Derry has.
Right. And that's the thing too, right? And I would like to see, preferably, I honestly think Jeepers Creepers would work great as like a TV show on Netflix, or, a TV show to really, if they set it at the right time, especially when they're reviving them at this moment, which is 23 years later, do like a TV show. So I'm doing these kills and stuff, and actually show it from the perspective of, like, we see him just scooping up people, but they don't even know, like you just said, the way Trish and Derry knew, where they saw him coming. They got it. They seen enough of him to where he wasn't a force that was just like random, right? He was random, but
Yeah.
they expected him. They knew he was coming, right? And I would like to see a perspective, especially a story based around this person doesn't even know he's coming yet, and he get him, and he just catches him when they don't even know what's going on.
And they didn't know he was a creature either. They just thought he was some crazy psychotic guy that's a serial killer, right? So it's like, but once they start interacting with it more and they see that it's something else, then it gets worse. But even before they saw him, remember when they went down into the hole and they saw the bodies and stuff? Or at least, Derry did. And he was telling Trish, like, nope, there's some shit down there. We need to keep driving and then drive even when we run out of gas. We will find a way to keep moving this car, because if we stop for a millisecond, whatever did that to all them people down there, no, negative. And he saw us too. Like, we need to explain to him that we didn't see him. We were looking at the sun. We were trying to assess the weather. We didn't see nothing. We don't know nothing about nothing. That's what we need to tell him, and then maybe we will be fine. And also that creature is intelligent too, K-Dot, right? Because it knows. To me, here's what established the creature's intelligence to me, right? As an audience member, when I saw it when I was a kid, I was like, number one, it is wearing a hat and a coat to conceal what it looks like. So it's not like it was just out there with the wings out and you can clearly see that it's something else, right? So the fact that it was wearing a coat and a hat shows that it understands that it's different and that you're not trying to draw attention, because then it would stop you from doing what you want to do, or at least make it harder when you got like all the different humans, the cops and all that stuff up your ass all the time. And then it had a specific type of vehicle, so that way he could store the bodies. He also had the body stored in a remote location. It wasn't like it was in a city where there's a bunch of individuals around. It was like the only way that you could see something is if you happened by, like how they happened by, but you're not going to get a whole lot of individuals that are hip to what's going on. And then how quickly it wanted to get Trish and Derry, because it was like, okay, these individuals are on my case. So they became a priority in a sense to where maybe they wouldn't have been if they didn't see anything and the creeper didn't notice that. So I feel like there's a strategy to it. There's the intelligence of wanting to conceal yourself to make it much more likely that you can succeed in your endeavors. So I'm like, within the span of like maybe 10 minutes or less, I had already figured that the creature or whatever it was at the time, without knowing it was a creature, like that guy is intelligent, like period, for how he's doing things.
Later in the movie, right, what you see is, we just to go off your point, you even see him trying to destroy evidence.
Right,
he burns down the building with all the bodies and stuff inside of it. Would have been interesting to see that process go down. I think you could have done it without showing too much of his face and stuff. To show him walk inside and he lights a match and flicks it and walks out. But you don't have to show his face and reveal his body to us yet. He just show a part of his hand, right? His hand. Show. I literally have a vision of how I would even shoot the scene, but would have been cool to see that.
It would have, but I think the fact that they didn't show it and we heard about it is also would add to the terrifying nature of the movie, because now you know that you're dealing with a smart killer that has been doing it a long time, and you still don't have all the answers. I think it added to the mystique as well.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like I say, would have been good for me. I would have liked to see it, but also not seeing it does give you that indication that this dude is he's thinking ahead.
Right.
He's not just some cookie cutter serial killer. He's actually a thinking one. He knows what he's doing.
He's a smart monster, because like when you're dealing with monsters and stuff, like they don't have to be smart because they're monsters. Like they could just walk out in the daytime and just grab somebody by their neck and they may not care because they're a monster. But if you have a monster or creature that thinks before it does stuff, to me that's worse, because it's not gonna just do necessarily what you're expecting it to do. And there's a possibility that creature or monster is smarter than you are, which makes it worse because it can possibly outthink you.
And he's also very selective. Like he's a selector. He just don't kill. Like there's a lot of killers that are, you know, selective. They just don't kill anybody. But then those are the ones that are like, you know, even big, you know, even a bigger danger because they pinpoint who they want. It's not that it's just random killing because anybody can do some random shit and just randomly kill everybody. It's really no surprise. It's not shocking. For example, remember the Buffalo shooting, right? The person, what was he specifically looking for? Black individuals.
Right.
That's what made him even worse than just someone who goes in there and just kills, you know, you kill random people. That's bad. That's really bad. But selectively picking on a certain group to take out, oh yeah, that's even worse. It's like, damn.
Yeah, because now you're talking about there's more planning. You know, there's a lot of calculations going on to make sure that you're in a certain place at a certain time, and so there's a lot more thought put into it. That's very true. But because in the case of like with these creatures and stuff, right? I feel like you don't really have any set of rules per se, but it's like once you start making them formidable on the intellectual side of things, they become worse because then it's just like you then start to understand that you can't just set a trap and it would walk through it. It would be able to figure it out, or it would be able to set a trap for you to show you how it's done. Like, this is how you do a trap, motherfucker. Like, not what you tried to do to me. Like, that's what makes it more terrifying because then you're like, what is the extent of this? And then you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure it has like what, hundreds of years of experience. Like you start thinking about different stuff, and then it's like, well, was it always like this? Did it get better over time? Does that also mean that it's going to become more beast like a couple more years down the line? Like, what's the extent of how this works? But either way, the characters are going to be like, I'm not trying to be here for what happens 2 weeks from now. I saw what it did a couple seconds ago, and I think it's time to leave. You know what I mean?
And Terrence, I'm not sure. Well, since you brought up the origin, I'm not sure if you read it, but they literally released a comic that's like a prequel. It's not that breaks down his origin. Like his origin is still a mystery, but it's a prequel comic that dates his lifespan back to the time of the Aztecs. And during that time, he was supposedly like praised as they used to sacrifice people to him, so he doesn't just like go around just like picking off anybody. So he would fly down literally and come down and, you know, eat off the sacrifice. But I'm not sure how
I was not aware of this. Now, is this a prequel to like the first movie, or what are we talking about?
It's so the backstory they give the backstory of how long he is alive. But there's a part in the story where it gets back to a present day where it's very modern. But I don't know if it takes place before the first movie or after or around the same time.
Well, I mean,
it seems like it takes place around the same time as the first movie, because unless it takes, because if he woke up and that was what 99 the movie took place,
right?
If he had to be alive 23 years before, then he'd be the part of the book would have to take place in like 89, so
because you said before, you know, with the Aztecs, so obviously it's before, but what I meant by that is when it comes to how it works in relations to the movies, like, is it its own thing, or does it act within that same universe and that kind of thing?
That's the thing. I'm not too fully aware how canon it is, because mind you, it's not like, I don't think the original director, Victor Salva, who created the franchise, overseen that comic. So that's the thing. I don't know how canon it is, because the original creator, his name isn't like attached to it. It's like, it's an official comic, okay, but it's not done by the creator, or the creator is not attached.
Okay, see, the reason why I was asking is because, like, for example, the Angel series, the spinoff of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, my all-time favorite TV show, when that ended at season 5, like, it ended up getting canceled, and Joss Whedon came out with comic books that acted as what would have been the 6th season of Angel, right? Yeah. So because of that, because the creator was attached, that's what makes the Angel comic books canon to the Buffyverse. So, and then for the most part, because I read most of them, I think there's a few that I didn't read, because at the time I got like some hardcover and it had like so many issues in them. So I may or may not have read all of them, but at that time, that's what it was. And you see, okay, the creator of Angel and Buffy, you know, he wanted to find a way to continue it for the fans, because that's literally like probably the biggest cliffhanger I've ever seen, like that he was going to have his apocalypse. It was a global apocalypse, and we didn't get to see that. And it just would have been the coolest thing. So that's why I was asking, because like, if the creator is not involved, then it's just like, okay, then like, does that mean that it's not canon then?
Yeah,
like if somebody just went off on their own and did it?
Yeah, and I think it was by people that have rights to the franchise. I think MGM, who produced the movie, I think they're the ones who rights. I think, you know, the person would have to go through the production company to actually be able to make this comic and, you know, get authorization to even publish it and make money.
Right. Okay.
But I don't know how canon it is, but until I get official confirmation, I'll let you know when. I can actually send you the link to the comic if you.
Because here's the thing, right? Because even if it's not canon, because it's like canon is just the idea that those that worked on it has approved it, and they're like, yeah, this exists within the same stratosphere. Yeah. But even if it's not canon, if like they're letting you know that it exists within that universe in terms of the story, but it's technically not canon, I just like to know these things so that way when I'm reading it, I can understand if like, okay, I need to disconnect from what I already know, or I need to keep what I know in mind in relation to the storytelling. You know, I feel like knowing that kind of information can, you know, change a little bit how the story is perceived, right? You know,
right. Because you do want to be, you know, you do want to be at least genuine about it to an extent. So, because you know, if you approach it from the perspective of assuming it's canon and it's not canon, then you might be doing a disservice to the story itself if you don't acknowledge it. But if you don't acknowledge that it is canon and read it as if like, you know, it's a one-off thing, it don't matter. Like, well, no, you can't do that. It's not like, for example, The Dark Knight Returns, which is a complete Elseworld, is not canon to the main branch of, you know, comics that you would read for DC. That's the main canon. But you can read that. You read that in context of, okay, there's no canon here, so it's going to be very different, right? Now, you may still hope that, you know, Batman is still Batman to an extent, but you just have to realize it's going to be a very different Batman from what you know.
Right. And that's always fine. Like, because once something is established as Elseworlds, as long as it's not, you know, something that I would find to be stupid, so to speak, then I'm okay with it, because I'm like, well, this is not how the character would normally be, but under these circumstances in this context, it does apply in this way. And I'm like, sometimes it's just as good, and sometimes it works for that, and then sometimes it doesn't, and then you're just like, good, I'm glad that this was a one-off because this was bad or whatever. Like, you know that it won't really affect anything, and you hope that because it's bad that they don't ever try to adapt it. You're like, yeah, leave this shit alone. But yeah.
Andre, we'll get your comments soon when we get to the DC topic, because that's going to be a part of it. But let me get to Tony's first, so on Creepers Reborn. Tony, that is also true, but that came after the fact when the Creeper did need to kill him off because they found his lair. But you're not wrong, because when he did sniff the Gary's laundry, nasty motherfucker, he at that point was like, all right, they smell good. I want them now. Like, now he has more reason to get them. That motherfucker nasty. I'm telling you, I kind of wish they showed that scene of him taking his laundry and smelling it, but it's a far away shot, so you don't know who he is yet, right?
Okay, like let me
laundry and shit.
Let me tell you this, K-Dot. The only time that I will smell clothes is usually if they're my own and I'm trying to see, you know, if they're smelly, right? Like, you know, something like that. But it's not going to be to the extent like the Creeper where he was clearly getting off on that. He was like, I'm about to eat them tonight. Like, this shit about to be amazing.
But and that's the thing about it, right? Because that's the crazy thing about food, right? Because he's trying to eat these people. Like, the only reason he wants to get these people to eat them, right? There is like a sensation when you eat food, like it tastes good, right? But that it's whole sensation to it. That shit is sex for him. It's sex. It's nourishment. This motherfucker is wild.
Right.
He is wild. As he is smelling you, he's getting off to you, but he's going to end up getting protein and all his nourishment from you. Wow.
Right. And also it acts as his entertainment and art because he likes to hang him up and keep the eyes out, and he plays classical music. You know what I mean? Like, he just
Oh, and in the first movie, I love that scene where you're going through his lair and you look at the table, you see him literally do like a art of himself that he etched into his table, like literally a art of him. And then you see the rest of his lair got all these liquids and random stuff.
Yep, and then Darius is there with his eyes out and stuff. And then remember, it matched what the Black Oracle was saying when she was like, yep, I heard your brother screaming alone in the dark. He's gonna die, Trish, he's gonna die. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I was concerned more because of her. I was just like, I'm not sure, like, if she tells the truth.
See, this is the thing, right? I think she was withholding some information because she knew for a fact she was definitely good because she was able to make it out until the end and see all that, and she knew she was part of the premonition that she saw, right? I don't know. I think she did know who it was, but she didn't want to say it because they were trying to get her to say who it is. But I think what they did in the movie, she looked at who it was. If I remember, she looked at who it was, but it wasn't a true indication of who it was.
I think what happened was, there's a point to her visions where she can't make out everything, or that the outcomes can change, which is why, Derry was like, are your visions ever wrong? And then she's like, well, sometimes I can be a little crazy. So I think that it's a combination of sometimes it may not be fully complete, or sometimes when she gets stuff, she doesn't know how much of it's going to play out that way or how much of it can be changed. You know what I mean? So that's why she ended up trying to help them, because maybe she figured, okay, I've seen some stuff, I didn't see some stuff, maybe I can change it, right? That's why she was there to help, because otherwise, why interfere, right? So when you have characters that have the ability to have premonitions and visions and stuff, they can really do a lot to save or get someone killed that they believe should die, to like more or less ensure that it happens, because they got the vision. Like, I need to make sure that no one interferes into, letting this play out how the premonition told me. But depending on the universe and the way that the premonitions can work with any given character, is that some characters, when they have a premonition, it's absolute. There's no way you can change it. That's what it's going to be. And then you have the ones where it's not set in stone, that it can be changed if X, Y, and Z happens, but it has to happen in that way, because otherwise it's going to play out how they saw it. So sometimes there's room for change. Sometimes you can't do shit.
And that is definitely true. And in this case, what she saw was a future that can be changed. It's not a future set in stone. Shouts out to the multiverse. Shouts out to the multiverses. That it breaks that stuff down. But overall, what's your biggest expectations for this movie? Like, what do you specifically hope that they do or want them to do for this fourth movie? Oh, and what you don't want them to do. Like, what you don't want them to do for this fourth movie?
Oh, sorry, say that again, kiddo.
What's your expectations for this fourth movie? What do you hope they do? What don't you want them to do?
Well, I actually don't have any expectations, because the third movie was just kind of out there. Like, I had some enjoyment from it, but it's because it was so silly. So with this one, based off of what I've seen from the trailer, man, I don't have any expectations. I just want to. I hope that when I watch it, I don't hate it. That's about it, man.
Right. I definitely don't want to hate this either. You know, and like I say, when I go into it, the director, he's a piece of shit. Fuck him, right? But that's not going to stop me from wanting to watch a movie or support something, right?
Right.
It's not going to stop me. He's a piece of shit, but I'm still going to watch this movie because I like the franchise itself. I can separate the art from the artist. Same thing with the Flasher Ezra Miller, right? Ezra Miller's doing some crazy shit, but that's not going to stop me from watching his Flash movie. I can care less if other people do not watch it, but I'm going to watch it. So I'm going to watch this. I hope it comes out good. Hope the special effects is better. And one scene I just need, Terrence, it's just the one scene I need in this movie, and I probably won't bitch about nothing else. There needs to be a scene where he wakes up, because he's stuck in a barn in the second movie, right? He wakes up, right, and the old dude is like, Jack, the father, is sitting in the chair, old as shit. We saw in the second movie, he's old as dirt. And he's back, and the creature literally takes out that post puncher, it stabs him with it. It like repeatedly stabs his old ass with it, and then kills his son and runs away to fully regenerate and get, you know, his new clothes and stuff. I hope they start the movie like that, where he wakes up.
I highly doubt they're gonna do that. But here's the thing though. I would want them to have like that same kind of scene, except the old guy fucked the creeper up and then he flies away. I'm like, wouldn't that be some shit? Out like he was waiting. He came back to life. Then he beats the crap out of the creeper and the creeper flies off. I'd be like, that is the coolest character in that whole universe for being able to do that.
And I'll be fine with that too, because so how the concept from the leaks, not the leaks, but how this creature is being explained by the director and stuff is that when he comes back, he's weakened. You know, he's weak, got to eat and get his nourishment. There's a part in the trailer where you literally see him crawling. You don't see him fully crawling, but you see his hand coming out of the barn, and he's like crawling. You know, he's not like running out. He's crawling. He's weak. So if there's a scene where as soon as he wakes up, that post puncher is ready to go, and the dad hits it and goes, whoosh, and he has to, you know, crawl his way out, and he's throwing shit at the dad to, you know, keep him from trying to kill him and shit. But he just runs and doesn't kill him. You know, and like I say, if they really do it right, you can set up a sequel where Trish, the dad, and the son, and all these people that have been wronged by him come back and get their revenge. He picks off some of them, kills them off, but ultimately, you know, he ends up getting defeated at some point. Or I don't know, maybe he kills them all and he wins, and he comes back another 23 years and kills more people.
And that's a good point you brought up, because like whenever he, you know, goes into his cocoon, right? He's like, he gets really like shriveled up and shit, like 20 pounds. And then when he comes to again, it's like he gets a little thicker, and then he might feed, and then, you know, he'll start to stock up again. So I do like that, you know, that kind of, you know, progression in terms of his appearance. Like he'll appear, but then he just kind of gets stronger as he progresses. I like that, because then that shows the power of the creature. So yeah, there's nothing.
And another thing that might be coming up in this movie. I'm not sure.
Vitamins, you like? Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And another thing coming up in this film, I'm not sure if you know about it. I hope they don't go full force with it, because then it's going to be another Halloween situation. You know, supposedly there's supposed to be a cult that was part of this that's attached to the Creeper. That's what I heard from the movie. Like there's supposed to be a cult that's tied to it in this movie, and they help him do some stuff. I don't know. I hope it's not true. Then it's going to like take away. Yeah, that's like Halloween. What movie was that? Halloween had a cult? Was it H2O or something?
No, it was. I'm trying to remember in the Halloween. No, it was. I want to say in the 6th movie. Like he had. Yeah, it was in the 6th one. It was the one right before H2O, and that's the same. That's the same movie where Michael kills his niece, the one that we saw in the 4th and the 5th movie. So my thing is that it's not so much that it would be like Halloween something else, as much as it would be that you're telling me that the creeper needs help now when he doesn't.
Right. And if you look at the first two movies, there's nobody helping him. He's doing this shit solo.
Right.
Now, if they're doing this, right? Just think about it, his truck, right? Where does his truck go when he goes to sleep? He's good for 23 years. Somebody's going to stumble across it. Maybe there's some group of people that he knows that he lets live, when he comes back every 23 years and promises that I'm not going to kill you, but hide my shit,
Okay,
if it's a situation like that, then I might be okay with it.
Okay, there's ways to do it where it could be fine, but the reason why I don't want that there is because it takes away attention from the creeper. Because then you start having questions that have to do with humans. Oh, how often do they help him? Is there a deal that was struck? Are they covering up his mistakes so that way other humans don't find out? Like it becomes a distraction, which is why that cult shit didn't even work with Michael Myers, because it's like he doesn't need help. He doesn't need a cult. He doesn't need individuals cleaning up after him. He's fine as he is, which is why he has his own franchise. When you add stuff to it, it should not be adding to the creature or the killer as much as it should be that you introduce characters to fight the creature or the killer, but not to necessarily assist them in that way. You don't need that.
And also, it shouldn't be like to the point where we start to question stuff that shouldn't be questioned. Like we question the intelligence of the script and go like, wait a minute, well, if that's the case, then why didn't blah 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 this and that? Because you don't want to do that with your story. You don't want to start to contradict your own rules you set up. And honestly, if they just have it to where it's a group of, if that quote thing is true, it's only to where the group of people do something like they hide his truck that he specifically needs to get around and keep moving forward and hide his bodies and shit, and that's it. And like you said, if there's to where they do something where he struck us in here and leave my family alone for the rest of it, leave my generation, the generations of my family alone, then we'll do this for you. Just this one little thing. If it's something like that, okay. I might be okay. As long as it's not no extra where like they give him powers and stuff, they're the ones that revive him, all that stuff. Like not too much.
I don't like that because that humanizes the creeper, which makes him less terrifying. When you can strike deals and negotiate, he stops being as terrifying as he should be. Because then it comes like, remember how I mentioned the word distraction earlier? That's a distraction because now you're asking, oh, what can I do to not get killed by this thing if I make the right deal? Those are not the kinds of conversations that we should be having in relation to the creeper.
I agree.
So to me, it's like if someone like say like I don't know like because cars and stuff they can get towed away and stuff like that. That's fine. Like if somebody found it and they're like, okay, I'm going to use it for myself, or I'm just going to tow it away. It shouldn't be here because 23. What is it? 27 years or 23? How many is it that the creeper is gone?
23
was
years.
It 23? Years is a long time. That's multiple decades and some shit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut out a little bit, but I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Have I been cutting out the whole time, or I'm still good, like for the most part?
Nah, you was good. You just cut out for a little bit, but I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. Like there's a couple decades and some change, so naturally somebody could find something can be built, something could be in the way, or something needs to be built, and you got to remove some stuff. That's fine, and then the creeper tracks it down and then kills the humans. But to me, if they decided to hide it because of an agreement stuff, I'm like, you're ruining the mystique of the character, because that was not established in the first two movies that he needs help or any of that kind of stuff. So you have to be careful with that. Those are the kinds of things that messed up Michael Myers' stuff, and they had to get away from that. Just like they had made a few mistakes within this franchise. Like the first one was when they made Halloween 3, remember? And it had nothing to do with Michael Myers. And it's like, this is bullshit. And people hated that. That's why when Halloween 4 came out, it was called The Return of Michael Myers. And they were letting people know it's back to what you wanted to see, that you enjoyed from the first two movies. And then you got the Halloween 4 and 5, that was fine. But it was like, where's Laurie Strode? But it's like, okay, here's his niece. Then, he kills off his niece, and then you get the code and everything. And it's like, why is this here? You don't need that. And then that's why you get Halloween H2O after that, and it circles right back around to what made it famous to begin with, which is Laurie Strode. So you have to be careful, because if it fails, then now you have to play cleanup. How do we get past this and get back to what we were? Sometimes the answer is you can't. You're done. You just have to reboot it and start over. But sometimes you can, but you can avoid. That's too much of a risk or a distraction to what you've already.
Terrence, you just cut out for a bit again.
Okay. Wait, what was the last part you heard?
You talking about rebooting it?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I was saying that you could technically, reboot something, but you want to stay away from stuff where it's going to cause a distraction or it makes it less likely that you can return to form. Do not do something that takes away from what you already established. It's too risky and it's not smart. Like, the possible payoff for it to work is not worth it to me. To ruin something that individuals like, it is why risk it?
Yeah, that's why at some point, especially horror, they need to. Sometimes you can end it and just end it and keep moving forward. Like, even I'll give the best example, Pumpkinhead, right? First movie solid, but I think they did a sequel. That shit is horrible, Terrence.
Yeah,
it's not even like Shudder worthy. It's like the first movie of Pumpkinhead is good, and the second movie, it looks even. It takes place today. Like, it's a 20. I think the movie came out in 2010s, and it looks worse than a movie that came out in the 80s. I think it came out in the 80s, if I remember. I might be wrong, but I think Pumpkinhead 1 came out in the 80s, and it looks even worse. Like, it's just a shittier quality.
I know I've seen a few of those movies. I didn't care for either one that I saw, but the first one is definitely better than the subsequent sequel or sequels that came after it.
I'll watch them. I said Halloween 3 is my second favorite in the series, or original will always be my number one. Tony said in Halloween 3 they tried to make the series into an anthology series. Yeah, and the way it kind of seemed like they was trying to do that. And when you said they fuck up at 3, they was like, yeah, we can't do no anthology stuff. We need to fix this.
People came for Michael Myers and they got some random ass Halloween story. I'm like, that's not what you do. Like, okay, for example, K-Dot, right? Okay. All right. So I was saying, like, for example, say you do 2 Batman movies, right? And people are like, yeah, the third one's coming out. And then all of a sudden, the movie is about some random dentist. Why would you do that, K-Dot?
Right. It's not even logical. It's like, at that point, it doesn't even make sense if you're doing a trilogy. Like, you just straight up just destroyed this. It's like, what are you doing at this point? It seems like you're.
But bear in mind, it's called Batman.
Right. Yeah, and see, that's what makes it worse. It's either you ran out of ideas, or you just don't, or you're just being a douche, and you're like, I want to do something different. I want to do a different type of form of art. Like those type of people. And that's right. What I say. I think with Halloween 3, it was the second case where it was like, man, we just made money with these first 2. We can do whatever the fuck we want now. It's like, yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want with Michael Myers, not this other random shit. The Halloween is about Michael. It's about Michael Myers. He's pretty much the star of it. You take away Michael, you have no Halloween. You take away the monsters, the killers, these freaks from these franchises, you don't have a franchise. Imagine, that's why Friday the 13th was a different case, right? The first one didn't have Jason in it, but the second movie, Jason came into it, and then it started to be about Jason because it's about both his mom and Jason. But I don't think you can get away with making sequels around his mom, because his mom is just like what'd you say, like a catalyst,
right? But here's the thing, though. But we have to remember too how it started, right? Because the movie starts with Jason, like, he got murdered because humans deemed him to be inferior. Like he just came to that camp and everybody murdered him. The kids thought it was funny that he was drowning. The adults didn't do shit. It was like, this guy looks different from us. He's not worth saving. No matter how you slice it, that's exactly what they did, because they found it funny that this boy was literally scared and he was dying and nobody did anything. So his mother snapped and she decided to kill everybody at the camp. And I was on her side because I'm just like, yeah, I mean, most mothers are not going to do that. Obviously, they would talk about it, but most would never even do anything like that. But I was on her side in the sense of like, yeah, they literally murdered her son and nobody cares except for her. And she was already, looking after him because of his appearance, right? Nobody loves you more than your mother. That's what the humans say, right? Well, in the case of Jason Voorhees, that was 100% true. Because nobody else loved him, because humans literally killed him, right? So, and then they killed his mother. So Jason came back to life. He grew big as fuck, and then he stopped developing in his early 20s, and then he just started murdering everybody. So I'm like, the character had great motivation. He was murdered, and then his mother was murdered. So to him, the reason why he's killing anyone and everyone is because he was literally killed by strangers. So to him, there is no like, oh, I have to kill my sister or something like Michael Myers. It's like everyone is a target, because to him, everyone killed him because no one saved him.
Which makes sense for why he's doing what he's doing.
Right. And you could just keep making movies indefinitely, and you can put him in different scenarios. And it's just like, to him, you're not his mother, so you need to die. There is no like, well, he doesn't have the family connection, or they're not in Camp Crystal Lake. It's like, no, wherever he is, he's gonna kill. It doesn't matter where he is. It's just, you have him in that setting for a while, but he's gonna venture out of it because he's chasing people and he gets stopped and he ends up in this river or over here and it's away from that, or he's chasing individuals and they're traveling, like how we saw in Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, how he literally swam, which was terrifying because he's afraid of water. He was swimming, like he swam to shore and he ended up in the city of Manhattan. And he was literally walking around and humans were just like, what the fuck? And then, remember like that group of little kids like
you've been to Manhattan before. Shit, what Jason's been doing that we don't know about off screen?
But the thing is, like, it was just a process, like, because once he swam and he made his way to shore, remember he saw that billboard and the guy had the hockey mask and he just turned his head to the side like, the fuck is that? Like, why does he look like me? Like, I thought that was a nice thing that Jason did. It establishes his personality. He was like, what the fuck is this? I'm the only one like me. So then he chases the couple through the city, and there's some punk ass teenagers and stuff, and their radio was in the way, and Jason kicked that shit. And then they had the nerve to pull out some knives, like, hey, motherfucker, like, you damaged our radio. Jason turned around, lifted his mask up, and then they was like, hey, man, it's good. We didn't even like that radio anyway, and they just ran away. And then he put his mask back on and left. I had never seen Jason do that. He was just like, if you still want to attack me after you see what I am, I'll be happy to kill you. But he knew that would be enough to scare away those teenagers, which was interesting. And then he went to, chase that couple, and you fucking chase them through the restaurant, through the sewers, and they went all over the place. But the point is that allowed Jason to be to where he was not confined to Camp Crystal Lake. And as you know, Jason X, he was in space. So I'm like, Jason can go anywhere. He's not limited to one area. You can do anything with Jason because he is just a killing machine that's technically a zombie, and he's full of rage because he was murdered. So to me, whether it be the Creeper, Michael, or Chucky, or anyone, he probably has the best motivation in terms of wanting to kill because he himself went through a tragedy, being murdered, literally. And he wasn't a bad person. It wasn't like he wasn't a serial killer like Charles Lee Ray, right? He wasn't like bad before that. He was murdered. I'm like, what do you want him to do? Bake a cake?
That's why something like Freddy versus Jason worked. Remember when he, even Freddy manipulated him, but still working the same concept. His mom was murdered. Right. His mom was feeding him like, Jason, you need to get revenge. These people did this, and this to you. You need to kill those teenagers. You need to kill them because they, are going to do the same thing again. They're all bad. She was trying, like I said, the same concept still worked. That's why when Freddy versus Jason happened, I wasn't questioning like, why is Jason here doing this here? It's like, no, it can work because of the way Freddy manipulated him by using his mom to gaslight him.
And they also set it up with the ninth Jason film. Right, like Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, we saw that when he got pulled down to hell by demons. See, that's another thing. Like, my boy got blown into a billion pieces. He went to hell, came out of hell, and his spirit possessed a black man, if I remember correctly. He got snapped up, then he returned to his original body, and then he was completely fine. And then demons came up from hell and snatched him back down to hell. And Jason was almost able to escape the clutches of demons from hell before he finally got pulled down. And then we see that his mask was left behind. And then Freddy, pulled it down. He's like, he was just laughing. And then I was like, oh shit. So was that just a tease? And then years later, that's a crossover. That was a setup. I was like, that's awesome that it turned into that. Because that could have just been a nice little wink or throwaway, but it literally turned into a whole film. And how you said that, Freddy was manipulating Jason, right? We saw that within Jason's own franchise, that little boy, I want to say it was in maybe the 5th movie or so, because there was a boy that, he encountered and he shaved his head and then he was pretending to be like Jason's mother. And then that got Jason to stop and listen because Jason was imagining his mother talking to him, right? And then the boy was able to kind of fuck him up with the machete. And I'm like, so we saw that if someone can use the right kind of voice and mimic his mother, that would work for a little while before he fucks you up, depending on how long you do it and stuff. But so for Freddy, because he has actual powers, he was able to turn into his mother and mimic her perfectly. So I'm like, the way that he was able to manipulate him made perfect sense, because if humans could do that, of course, Freddy could do that 100 times better because of his powers.
Yeah, and then another thing I wanted to ask you, since we're on that, if you did want to see Jason come back, right? You want to see Jason come back. Would you like for them to do like a Halloween route with the franchise where they get rid of some movies and just continue off the first 2 or first 3? Or do you want them to completely do like another reboot again? Like reboot, still, keep to the basics, but continue from there.
You know what?
Like a Friday the 13th. If you want to see a revival, how would you want it to be done?
Well, I have to answer that in multiple ways, because number one, we had that reboot that came out so many years ago, and it was awful because Jason was smart. He was really smart, and he was basically Rambo. That's not his character, right? That's not what he does.
It didn't seem like he was Jason. Just seemed like he was just a guy dressed as Jason, but his demeanor and everything
exactly
not accurate to what he was.
It was horrible. You took away the foundation of the character. They messed it up. So because that was so long ago, it has been enough time to where you could do something else. But here's how I'll answer it, because it's really complicated. I feel like you would have to really sit down and think about it. You would have to take in consideration the 10 films and also the terrible reboot. You would have to take in consideration what happened with him and Freddy, and then figure out what you're going to do. Because on one end, you could just make another Jason film, like it can act as the 11th one, right? Like after Jason X, like when he fell from space, and then like I'm pretty sure he got burnt to a crisp, but we saw his mask in the water and the I'm like, yeah, okay, so he might come back. Like, he's burnt to a crisp. We know the black dude is dead as fuck. The black dude was probably the coolest character in that movie, because he literally survived Jason's attack. He fought him and he held on to him, punching him while they were falling back down to earth, right? So that black dude was beast. Yeah. But we know he didn't survive. But Jason, he could survive almost anything, because we've seen him exploded, come out of hell, and all this stuff. So you can literally take his character in many directions. So you can either continue from Jason X, and it can act as the literal 11th installment, or you can do a proper reboot, unlike the one that came out like 8 years ago or whatever, you know, and make it very similar to the first Friday the 13th movie, except that you can more or less fast track how quickly Jason becomes Jason. Like, you can either play it out the same way and it'd be like a carbon copy, but there's nothing good about that. You just did the same thing. So you can have the mother in there, but if they want to, you can do like something along the lines of like, you know, the mother wants him to go to camp, right? Because, you know, hey, get out there in the world. You know, I can't be with you all the time. Eventually, mother's going to die, right? And he's just like, nah, we family, right? And then we see that he's deformed and stuff. And then it's just like, you can maybe show that she's sick or something, and she wants him to go to the camp. And then while he's at camp, his mother dies. That's fucked up, right? He's thinking, oh, I'm going to come home and see mama. And then she dead as fuck, right? And not only does she die while he's at camp, but he's also murdered while he's at the camp too. You see what I did there? And I just thought of that in a couple of seconds. Like, right off the bat, you've already delivered something that is already compelling, and it's a slight tweak, because then instead of the mother being, you know, becoming a murderer to avenge her son, you now have Jason dealing with multiple tragedies that, you know, hey, if I wouldn't have left my mom, she would have been okay. But we all know that that would have made a difference. It just, he would have got to spend more time with her. But she also wanted him to leave so he can have a normal life. So I'm like, imagine what that character must be going through to leave his mother, to try to make her happy and see if he can, you know, make some friends. She dies in his absence, and then he's also killed. That's a lot of trauma, and it's so compelling to do that. So then when he comes back, you know, he notices like, hey, I'm alive and shit, you know, not to the degree where he's smart and talking too much and all that kind of stuff. We don't want to, you know, completely change him, but just like, he's trying to understand what's happening. He develops back, and then
he comes back like a shell of his former self. But the one thing he does remember is how he died,
and what
happened
with
his mother.
Right. So then we see that he's growing at a rapid rate, and his skin is like, you know, kind of fucked up because he's technically a zombie, right? You can play up that kind of angle, and he's supernatural, and he just starts killing individuals, and that's the first movie. And I'm like, I thought of that in a couple of seconds just based off of that question, right? So obviously, with more time, you flesh it out. But with that, you still have the elements of what made it popular, like, and you also can get the audience to feel sorry for him even more than what happened in the original movie, because you show that the mother is a nice person and she just wanted what was best for her son, and they both just ended with this terrible fate, and it just got progressively worse. So while it's never okay to just kind of, you know, go out there killing people, it's like, you understand. So, but because he's brutally killing people, it's like the audience is in an uncomfortable position, because they're like, I'm trying to feel sympathetic for him, but because of his actions, I can't do that. But at the same time, I understand why he's so angry. You see what I'm doing here? So with that, you have something that's very compelling, that is pretty unusual within the horror genre, that you can have the audience conflicted to that degree, and that will just elevate the Jason character, and he would still be a monster, but it's like, wow, based upon how you did this, I really understand. Like, this is fucked up. And it's like, there's nothing that can stop him. He's an unstoppable force. And what you merely do is that at the end of the movie, you make it seem like he's not dead. He just temporarily got stopped. And then there's going to be another one. And it's like, you know, humans are going to forever be trapped in this cycle of dealing with this monster that's angry. And there's no end to his rage. He's just going to keep going.
Right. That might be the worst thing you do. Some with the endless rage that you can't even really fix unless.
Right. Now, some humans might be like, that sound like the Hulk. I'm like, no, it's not the Hulk. It's Jason. He was murdered. His mother died. It's like, when I say endless rage, it doesn't mean that he's going to get stronger as he gets angrier. It's not the literal Hulk. I just mean that no matter how many individuals he kills, it's never going to be better. He's not going to come back to life. His mother's not going to come back to life. You know what I mean? It's just, he can never get rid of this pain.
It'll basically be it's that saying where, you know, where they bring up, it's the saying about insanity, right? When you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, thinking you're going to get a different result, and you keep getting the same one, right?
Right.
A trip to that, like, Jason could think killing these people is going to possibly make things better, fix stuff, but nah. It's going to be an endless cycle of you doing the same shit over and over again. You're going to eventually fall into insanity even deeper.
Right. So then with that, right, that's a progression for his character. Because again, we're not going to have him doing all this talking and stuff. Like, at first when he was a kid, sure. But when he becomes Jason, he's not going to just have all this dialogue. So I wouldn't want humans to think that this is just a starting point. Because obviously when he was a kid, he wasn't Jason yet, like the monster, right? He was just a little boy that was different. You know, he had a deformity is what you call it. And, you know, he didn't ask for that shit. That's just how he was born, right? So, and then humans punished him for it. So I'm like, you have to understand that, you know, before he became that, he was a human. He was a human being. And then he essentially became a monster as a result of what happened to him. You know, he didn't choose that. It's not like he woke up and he was like, yeah, let me start killing people. Amen. Like, no, there's a progression. So it's not like, you know, like how with Michael Myers, he just woke up on a Tuesday and he just killed his sister and he was trying to kill the other one. Like, he is 100% pure evil to where there's no rhyme or reason. Just like Dr. Loomis said, I don't care what nobody says. Dr. Loomis said for like, what, 6-7 movies, like, I don't know what happened. He just had the blackest eyes and he didn't say much, and I knew he was the devil, and he was telling the cops and everything like, this is not a man. I don't know what he is. So I'm like, you can't defend Michael. But at least with Jason, it's like, if he would have had a different life, he would have never become that. He would have never turned into that. There's no way. Like, one thing led to another, and it's like, granted, you know, everybody has choices to make, but the point is that he would have made different choices if that didn't happen to him. If, you know, humans would have treated him with respect and didn't murder him. If they didn't end up killing his mother. Granted, she was killing people, but it's like, to him, it was a collection of messed up events. Like, to him, he was murdered because he was different. And to him, they killed his mother because she was trying to avenge her son. Right? So to him, there's no like...
Because they was killed, like, I'm not saying killing is always okay, but there's reasons people are killed. Like, for example, if you're a murderer and you kill somebody, someone kills you, totally fine.
Right.
You know, makes perfect sense. But in their case, they was killed. The mom is different. She was trying to kill people, so the person fighting back, they wanted to kill him. And it wasn't the direct cause of death. But in Jason's case, he was killed for looking different.
Right.
Just looking different. It's like killing a black person for being black.
Right. It's the same thing, no matter what's it like. Because I'm like, that's another thing, like, you know, like I was saying, like, quickly, just the whole, if I were to redo Jason, that's what I would do. I'm like, this is no different than taking somebody out because of their gender or because of their ethnicity or because of their sexual orientation or because of their religion what country they live in, all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing. And then depending on what it is, obviously you can argue this is worse than that. But we're talking about the underlining principle that this person was robbed of life because they were deemed to be inferior. So I'm like, that concept, K-Dot, is universal and everyone understands, whether they agree with it or not, that that's not the right thing to do.
Agreed.
So with that, you already have your compelling nature. It's not going to be just another horror movie because there are universal themes in it. And it makes it a tragic situation to where, again, the audience becomes conflicted. It's like, okay, now he's wrong. But before he started doing that, you were feeling for him. You were crying and shit, right? In the theater, like, oh man, like, oh no.
He was doing it. Like,
right.
For I hate to bring it up because we're going to get to it soon, talking about the superhero stuff. I hate to mention it for Thor: Love and Thunder, right? When you see Gore the God Butcher in the movie, he's correct. He ain't wrong. He ain't lying about his motivations, why he's doing what he's doing. He was completely correct, and no one proved him wrong in the whole movie. Well, you know, usually the hero's supposed to try and prove the villain wrong to an extent, while still also understanding their perspective. But, you know, with Jason, you understand why he does it. Can you blame him? You might be in the same position too. You know, if you're in the same position, you might just do the same exact thing he's doing.
Right. It's like, and then, because, like I said, like, I have that, like, what are they supposed to do? Bake a cake? You know, I had coined that many years ago because for some reason, while humans, like, because I had, like, this large period, K-Dot, where humans were trying to tell me, like, oh, you know, you're a machine, you ain't got no feelings and this and that. But somehow when they talk about stuff, they seem colder than I am, because I'm like, how are you not understanding that this person went through a trauma, yet you're trying to tell me that I don't understand and I don't feel? I'm like, you should feel this before I do, since I don't have the emotions and you do. I'm like, how the hell are you not sympathetic to somebody being murdered because they're different? It's just like, well, I don't agree with the murder. I'm like, I didn't tell you to agree with the murder. I'm talking about what happened to this person that led to them killing individuals.
Right, like,
right?
You don't have to agree with what the person is doing, but if you can at least understand why someone does what he's doing, I'm glad you brought it. Have you seen that show on Netflix called Mindhunters? Or heard about it?
I've heard about it.
So basically, it's based on a true story. It's when the FBI had to restructure how they look at common things like serial killers and stuff. And there was a guy that was going around trying to help, you know, rebrand how they tackle serial killers. He literally was sitting with a serial killer. He was going to different serial killers and talking to them, trying to understand how they operate, instead of just looking at it from her perspective of, he's just crazy. Like, yeah, they're crazy, but why are they crazy? Why are they like this? You know, do you actually sit there and dive into it? What are the tendencies? What lines up? What is the common behaviors between these people? So, and that's what that show's about. And that's why with the Jason thing, right? You don't have to agree with what he's doing, but you can understand why he's killing these people. I mean,
see, and that is exactly what I've been telling humans for the last 19 years, among many other things that they just don't seem to know how to process, right? Because humans, a lot of times, they're dismissive of stuff, right? You know, especially when they start getting emotional about things. I'm like, but my thing is that they have to pay attention to the words that are used, right? I always tell humans, pay attention to the words that I say. I specifically said, you can understand why this is like this. I didn't say you should agree with it. There's completely different words, but they're focused on, well, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, that's not the conversation about what you would and wouldn't do. The conversation is about, this was wrong, and because of this, it led to this. And there is a strong possibility and almost a guarantee that if that didn't happen, you wouldn't have had this. And it's very difficult for you to argue against that. I'm like, if Jason would have had friends and a girlfriend and all these different things that everybody else seems to get, I'm pretty fucking sure he wouldn't have died, number one, and he wouldn't have become a killer.
Yep.
Why would he need to do that? They're like, well, anybody could still turn out that way. And I'm like, no, see, now you're presenting bullshit. I'm talking about based upon the circumstances that were presented. He was angry. It wasn't just anger, he was full of rage, which I know all about. Like humans, the problem is, K-Dot, like humans think that they understand rage. Most of them do not. I'm like, anger is not the same thing. Anger is like you stub your toe. Oh, damn it. Or you can't find your keys. Oh, where is it? Oh, it was right here in my back pocket the whole time, right? And then it goes away. It's like quick and then it goes away. Rage is something that stays. It does not go away. We're talking about months and years on end where you are constantly seeing red and you want to either hurt yourself and or everyone else. That is rage. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm like, if the person has not experienced that, they don't know what the fuck it is. It doesn't matter if they see it or how many Hulk comic books they read. It's not the same thing as experiencing it yourself. Or at the very least, you know someone that has gone through that. At the very least, if you haven't experienced it yourself. So I'm just like, this dude was full of rage. I understood that as a kid. So with me, unfortunately, you know, as I have, you know, mentioned to you, I've been through a lot of shit. And humans shouldn't have to go through that. It's not about ranking up points about who experienced more. And it has nothing to do with the competition. It's just the reality of that shit was fucked up. And I did not know how to process it. And I did not have the help that I should have had that would have made the difference. It just was not there for me. So I had to try to deal with it the way that I knew how. And rage was a natural response. And because certain things were continuous, that's why it continued. And I was a kid and shit. Like, it's different. So it's just all these different obstacles. So I'm like, in the span of a movie or a show, you have to establish a character and a story. And the audience needs to either decide if they're going to cheer for the character or if they're going to want the character to die. But on both sides of the coin, whether you get the audience to like the character or hate the character, you have succeeded in getting them to have a response to the character. As opposed to just nothing at all, right?
Yeah. Terrence, real quick, any last things you want to say about this topic? You guys, we fleshed out this topic right here, the Jeepers Creepers one. Shit, this is a topic in itself. Talking about horror.
Right, yeah.
But any last things you want to say about just in general from this topic, specifically Jeepers Creepers or Jason that we talked about before we get to the DC topic and cover the recent DC stuff going on?
No, that's pretty much it. Cause like really, I feel like, you know, the Jeepers Creepers topic thing, there's only so much we could say because unfortunately there's not a whole lot of substance there up front, aside from like the first two films. But with Jason, the potential for it to be something new again is there because it's already so rich in its history in terms of what worked. There's more of what worked with Jason than not, because really what didn't work is the recent reboot. But there's a reason why he had 10 fucking films in his franchise and why he crossed over to literally fight another popular iconic character, monster figure, Freddy Krueger. There's a reason why that happened. You don't get that far if everybody hates your character. It's impossible. So my thing is, one, I don't really care about, which is Jeepers Creepers per se, but it might surprise me, and that would be a good thing. It would be a step in the right direction, which is always preferable, especially coming off of trash. And then Jason, I feel like you have to be careful with how you dive back into the water. Yeah, Jason probably hate me for saying that, bringing up water and stuff, but I had to do it because water is connected to his character. But yeah.
What'd you do? What'd you do?